Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know, yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show, yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know, yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show, yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know, yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show, yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know, yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show, yeah.
You have a good holiday?
Yeah, it was the best. Hosted the family for the first time. How about you?
That's awesome. Yeah, it was pretty good. Hey, Rizzle. How's it going? Yeah, it was pretty relaxing. How was your holiday, Rizzle?
Busy as fuck. And then everybody got sick.
Happy New Year, dude.
Yo, Happy New Year, man.
First episode since, turn of the new year. We already got a whip under our belt, but first Mars episode.
Dude, it feels like it's been a billion years since we've actually caught up and talked about everything, and almost to the point where I don't even know where to start, man. So much has happened between ending the year on that big Anon tree dump on our audience and everything, where he gave out a ton of shit, and I don't know, man. Then I sort of went into hibernation for a while, and only recently resurfaced last week for the CoolWIP with Reneel and everything, and it's cool to see everyone back in the house. What about you, man? How have things been?
First of all, let's talk about CoolWIP and how we've never leaned into that before. That last whip of 2023 where we made it rain, that was so cool, man. And the distribution was so fluid, and just shout out Anon Tree for making it rain on everyone. Man, it feels like the whip is really humming, where we have everything set up, the crew's making magic happen. So that's dope. And yeah, the long disconnect, or longer disconnect than usual, was much needed. But like you were saying before we started recording, holidays are crazy. I had all the family over, and it's probably more tiring than relaxing. So yeah, still trying to probably need another vacation from that vacation, if I'm being honest. But as we know, the markets aren't doing us any favors, with the shit show that happened yesterday with the SEC and the fake ETF announcement, whatever. It's madness, man.
It is madness.
It's fun though. It's fun to watch. Getting some giggles out of watching everyone mock the SEC for their terrible security with their Twitter accounts and all that good stuff, having no 2FA on their Twitter account, just like a raw dog email phone number that was compromised or something. Is absolutely insane to watch. But the volatility in the market is also super fun to watch and play with too.
It is, man. It's such a joke, right? To just sort of, and I feel like at this point, and we've talked about this a bunch of times in 2023 about how, this sort of feels like, crypto's final boss battle or whatever. And how are they going to, the big politicians and the government, how are they going to treat this thing and everything? And now it just seems like a joke, man. I'm got my popcorn out. I'm like, dude, whatever y'all want to do, meaning the higher ups and everything. I feel like the cat's out of the bag, at this point. So, they're going to have to, whether they're playing catch up now or later, they're either going to have to get on board or off of it, and the ship's going to sail regardless of how that shakes out. So I don't know, man. I got my popcorn out. I'm not personally. I mean, I'm based on what I've heard. It seems like an ETF, at least in the short term, is good for everybody. But also in the long run, I'm whatever, man. I think we're in a pretty good spot overall in the general crypto sphere.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see exactly how the markets will respond. With the preview yesterday, it was interesting to see BTC getting the bid and going down, and then ETH in particular getting the buy and kind of spiking real quick. We'll see if that continues to play out. It's just more fascinating than anything, and seeing how everyone has their strong opinion about it, and it's good for engagement, at least, because other than that, at least from my perspective, Twitter is in particular has been feeling pretty tired. Just people like saying the same shit, same conversations happening again. Nothing really of note, in my personal opinion. So adding some spice and drama from this side is probably really helpful at this point. Otherwise, it feels, if I'm being pretty honest, like kind of boring, man.
Yeah. And dude, honestly, yes, bringing some excitement. I'm seeing shout out Song a Day, man. I'm seeing him sourcing material this morning for an SEC song, which I can't wait for. But yeah, man, I feel like that's sort of the vibe right now. Is this has gotten interesting, and I also sort of feel like the more the SEC like sort of fumbles and bumbles and makes themselves look silly about all this, the more it like sort of inherently benefits us like indirectly, even if it's just exposure to how much they're fumbling and bumbling and everything makes people who are on the fringe a little bit more curious about what's going on and everything. So I don't know, man, I feel like this is sort of like a all attention is good attention type of situation. And I don't know, we'll let the chips fall where they may. I feel like this is so far beyond where the space in general was like just a few years ago. So, I got my popcorn.
Yeah, no, exactly. It highlights the fact that no one really knows how to do anything, honestly, even those folks in power that claim to be in power. So it's refreshing to see them get egg on their face and know that we're not all that different in the end, for better or worse. Obviously, in crypto, it's like the stakes are, I don't know, we're talking about internet money at the end of the day. So it is what it is. But it's sort of depressing to see how that translates to other parts of the government and that have more serious implications long run and affect more people more directly in their daily lives around the world. But we can save that conversation for a different day. We're just folks talking about crypto.
Yeah. But to your point, man, I feel like there's not a whole lot of like new, interesting stuff like being put out into the wild beyond like some of the things that we have been directly exposed to. I feel like we're pretty good about, keeping our ears to the ground floor. And, we're in conversation with some of the people who are like really pushing the technology and still innovating and everything. But for the most part, like across the scene, man, it feels like pretty flat and in a weird like builder phase or like dormant phase across like the NFT scene, at least, despite like the market going up. And I don't know, man, maybe, my memory doesn't serve me properly, but I feel like the last time we were on this sort of upswing, there was also like a flood of like projects coming out, and a lot of them were like sort of copy paste projects, but there were a lot of like interesting like slight iterations on each other that over the long term were sort of building on top of each other and everything. And I feel like I don't see that as much this time on this like sort of upswing. And I wonder if like the people who've been around are sort of keeping their cards close to their chest for the right time, or if like the vibe is just shifted. I don't know, man. What's your take?
Yeah, like if I were to kind of point out a couple of the bright spots or where it feels like there's more energy than normal would be like obviously Solana and then what's happening with ordinals. But those developments are more like incremental innovations. They're not like mind-blowing like, oh shit, I've never seen anything like that before. Like with Solana, I've been pleasantly surprised just from a user experience how snappy and quick things are. In particular, like using Phantom wallet that supports ETH and Solana amongst other things, and the bridge between those things. Just the user experience of like, all right, I got some ETH or like USDC on Ethereum. Want to get that over to Solana? Like, do I need to sign up to some super shady like exchange or something? No. Oh, Solana, the Phantom wallet makes it super easy. Click swap. Boom, boom, boom. You get all the funds over on Solana that you can exchange super quickly, really easily. And then the marketplace is over there. Everything's really quick, low fees. That's pretty cool. But like nothing mind blowing, right? You have more artists, like real proper artists that are going over there doing things, which is cool. But like there's nothing huge there. They have a bunch of shit meme coins people are speculating on. We've seen that like multiple times at this point. Okay, that's cool. Folks making more bank. You have the appreciation, which is giving more, putting more powder in all the native Solana users' kegs, which is going to be useful at some point, but nothing like mind blowing. And then on the ordinal side, it's like, okay, yeah, people are like making the equivalent NFTs on Bitcoin. That's interesting. The most interesting part about ordinals for me is after chatting with Brian Brinkman, he was telling me how like on the Bitcoin blockchain, a lot of people put like P5JS and other libraries that are commonly used these days by generative artists, so that the generative art side of things and the ordinal scene are like properly on chain, and they don't rely on any like external libraries that are off chain, like, which is sort of the asterisk next to a lot of the art blocks minted projects. But again, like these are like incremental improvements, nothing like fucking mind blowing. So it'll be interesting to see if there continues to be any like mind blowing, like people are doing something totally different in a way that is just melting faces, like we sort of have seen over the past like 14 years in crypto history, or if we've kind of plateaued and now we're just going to be hit with things that are more familiar and different and just probably better. It's, in my mind, it's TBD. I'm betting on some builders doing something that just hasn't seen the light of day yet. That's just going to like explode people's minds that have been in crypto as well as not crypto. But that's very much to be decided. So I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, man. All that stuff is interesting, I guess, man. I'll give you like the hot take or whatever, the counterpoint or whatever. I mean, I'm not, I'll miss the boat on Solana and I'll eat that because I just can't get down with like the centralized aspect of it, even though I know they've got some interesting stuff over there. But like, honestly, man, like zooming out, I feel like I got Cardano vibes like from Solana like instantly, where like the space is sort of dead. Nothing really interesting is going on, but there's still a bunch of degens lurking that want to chase something. And this is the new hype blockchain. And of course, like any new hype blockchain, I mean, it's not, quote unquote new. I should just say like the current hype blockchain. And, anything that is that, the artists and creators who are just trying to survive out here will obviously gravitate towards like wherever the money's at. So, understand that and everything. But I'm sort of in the same boat, man. I don't see them doing like anything particularly interesting beyond a lot of stuff we've already seen, wrapped in like a slightly different package or whatever. And understood what you're saying about art blocks. But there's also like examples of, completely on-chain NFTs on ETH and everything. So I'm like, all right, it's cool. Like, and people should have choices. And I'm not like, it's just not my choice. Ordinals, man, I started in this space like very, very early on as a Bitcoin maxi, like a decade and plus ago. So I am a fan of Bitcoin in general. I like people experimenting on Bitcoin. I don't know, man. My take on NFTs on Bitcoin is the most interesting stuff, like essentially already happened. Like they've got some like really early on NFT experiments that predate Ethereum experiments, and to me those have like very significant historical relevance when we're talking about like some of the rare Pepes and everything that are on Bitcoin like very, very early on. Mm-hmm. But Johan actually like quantified this pretty well in a tweet yesterday or the day before. He said something like, the most interesting thing about NFTs on Bitcoin is the fact that the NFT is on Bitcoin, which I feel like is largely true. Also about the ones on Solana, like there's nothing like inherently amazing or different or anything about like the tech that's going on. And there are nuances, and I'm not trying to like, shirk those, but for the most part, I feel like people are buying ordinals because it's on Bitcoin, not necessarily because they're in love with the NFT. And I sort of feel the same about Solana. It's like that's where the hype cycle is at. So people are buying a lot of shit that are hoping will go up in value. And you know, a lot of it just sort of feels like a speculation bubble to me.
Yeah, no, I mean that's largely where my mind is at and my feeling too. So I feel like maybe like is this us like maturing as like an industry, as a space where we're just getting these incremental improvements, like things are getting a little bit snappier, faster. Like the legacy blockchain, the big boy, the big daddy, or whatever you want to call it, Bitcoin is updating and like finally adopting like non-financial products, like i.e. ordinals, aka like NFTs or whatever. Yeah, cool. That's cool.
I agree.
But nothing major.
No, but I do think, despite me not being a fan of Solana and a lot of other things in the space, man, I do think, you know, it's a shame, like sort of what Blur did to royalties and you know, the sort of turning the NFT markets into like a total speculation game. But you know, zooming out, man, I feel like, you know, a lot of the sort of old head dinosaur, you know, platforms and programs, you know, even when we're talking about like MetaMask and everything, I feel like sort of got complacent with their like industry lead in the space. And even though some of these other products aren't for me or like aren't something I want to use, I feel like they are pushing some of the stuff that I do want to use to actually get off their ass and like, you know, make some improvements and start, you know, pushing again forward in you know, innovative directions again. So, you know, I think more competition, more, you know, people iterating and, you know, making small incremental changes, it definitely ends up benefiting the people who are, you know, more of my mindset in the long run anyway. So I think it plays out all good, but I do feel bad. Like, once again, man, you know, I think we're entering this, you know, period of time where there's going to be a lot of new people entering the space who are going to get wrecked because the most prominent stuff in front of them is the speculation bubble stuff. And I don't know if that inherently benefits us a lot in the long term, unless we find a better way to like show these people like the other stuff beyond that.
Yeah. I mean, where I think the space is going at that point is going to be more specific to specific verticals in crypto. The art side, like we can see where that's going. It's sort of like blockchain hopping, people, just following like the murder of crow lectors who are cawing like the latest greatest. Like we've seen that. On the social side, I think we're seeing some interesting movement, like when it comes to like Farcaster and DSO, but like to really feel the changes, like with those things, it feels like it's really going to be palpable to the folks that are in the weeds, like using those things, which is interesting. I think up until this point, as a more casual observer, like a general tinkerer of things, you could get more or less, you could grok all the changes and what's coming. But like the big change that it feels like it's happening is there's a lot of things that you just can't see unless you're like literally in the weeds using something, which is, I think, actually better for the space. Like you gotta really use it. Like you can be a speculator on things, but it's just like more tires to kick more vigorously, more regularly or something.
No, dude, I agree, man. To swing it back to what we were talking about originally, though, man, I feel like that last whip of 2023 was like a great example of like small incremental changes over the course of, you know, going on 5 years of the whip this year. That, like, man, if you think back to the beginning of what we were working with and what we're working with now, man, you know, we've really like hit our stride, not only as like a crew, but man, like the tech is just so seamless and fun to work with, even now. And I can only imagine like where it's going with that. But to be able to like, you know, throw together a custom world that was like, and we, like, you know, we've grown as a crew together, like just learning, you know, collectively. You know, we were able to optimize the parcel, throw a ton of shit in there. Meta guys had that race in there. We had a group of people in there. running really fluidly. And I feel like, that's the kind of stuff that if you just pop in, it probably doesn't look like much beyond anything anyone's seen in like a video game or anything like that before. But shit, if you're in the weeds and know where we came from within Web3 to where we are now in the context of like, the overlap of NFTs and the metaverse and everything, like whatever has, provoked all these small incremental changes across the board has really allowed us to like find our groove as well. So I don't know, man. It's been a lot of ups and downs, but I feel like, zoom out where we were at the beginning of NFTs and where we are now. I'm like, shit, man, we've come a long way.
Yeah, and like double clicking into beginning of the 5th year of the whip, like Jesus Christ, half decade. That's a half decade.
Right?
We're about to finish our first half decade of the whip.
That is madness.
Cool.
You don't hear anyone say like we're still early anymore. You notice that?
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah, no, like I see it. I heard or saw someone say that the other day. Just I think it may have been like Chris Dixon or Cry Barat. And it was just in the context of the total number of regular active users in the space. It's still very small, like compared to the population of the world. But we're at the like 1% or 2% mark or something that they were saying. And it's like, all right, well now we're comparing ourselves to like literally every single man, woman, and child in the entire world. Like we're definitely not early anymore when you're thinking about those comparisons. There's a lot of opportunity for sure to onboard folks, but based on what we're saying in the beginning of this conversation, like the crazy tidal wave of innovation and change is probably more or less over, and now it's like the hard work of like making things that a lot of people enjoy and kind of doubling down and going forward. But like we talked about in previous episodes too, it's like, yeah, you can optimize for the whole world, or you can have like your huge group of internet friends that you're doing stuff with and vibing out with and having a lot of fun and creating something that's like long-term sustainable. So there's that huge spectrum, and the more people see that and appreciate that, I think everyone's going to be more and more comfortable and don't need to worry too much about being early or any of that nonsense. It's just being a part of what's fun for you and then sharing in whatever potential upsides there, since everything in crypto has that opportunity for that financial aspect and layer, which is cool because more people's lives will just be financially changed and more secure, ideally heading forward. But yeah, we'll see.
No, yeah, I agree with the general sentiment, man. I just feel like it feels like the people who say we're still early are always the one who like their next tweet is about their bags in some like creative way or whatever. And I don't know, man. I if not non-financial advice, I do think there's still time to get in and probably do all right for yourself financially if you know what you're doing around here. But I feel like when we're saying we're still early, man, I'm like the early days have probably passed. There's like opportunities, and certainly like putting this technology in the hands of the masses. I think we're very early. I think we're like a decade out from like anything close to like, getting beyond like, single digit percentage use cases across the world or whatever. The technology is just too janky and there's like a lot of misinformation out there. I don't know, man. But who knows? I honestly didn't ever think we would be at this point now either. So, who knows how it all shakes out in the long run.
Yeah, I think for us, we can just you already have your popcorn out from like the shit show at the SEC yesterday, but we just need to get like a bigger tub of popcorn and kind of just like sit back in our comfy chairs and see what's going on as we like continue to be bosses and push the whole space forward when it comes to the bleeding edge of like the metaverse and all that good stuff. So privileged, man. I don't think as much about what and where we are in terms of like early, late, whatever. I just think, damn, like we have it so good. to kind of take it to a weird direction with like American sports. It's like college football championship or whatever, Michigan, Washington the other day. Jim Harbaugh was like, who has it better than me? No one. And I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. I feel the same way, just in the crypto context. It's my dude Rizzle.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, couldn't ask for anything more on how this, whole ride has affected me. I mean, it would be nice to like kick back on a bill or whatever, but not everyone has totally hit the moon. But shit, dude, to be able to just be like full-time Rizzle is a dream come true that I never even dreamed in the first place, because I never even imagined something like this being possible. But dude, I wanted to co-sign on like what you said in terms of like, this is the point in this where like the hard work begins. And I think that's why it feels like we're not early anymore to me in some respect, because I feel like when NFTs sort of became a thing, it was very vague, I guess, in terms of like, what can we do with these things? What are the use cases for these things? How does it actually play out in reality? And I feel like now, at this point in time, we have a general idea of all those things, right? And I'm sure there are use cases we haven't considered and experiments that haven't been done. And those stuff will go on like, infinitely or whatever. But I feel like generally we kind of know what we're working with at this point. And we kind of know what products are out there and what platforms are out there that are doing things right. And a lot of those are now sort of digging their heels in, right? It seems like people who are here for the long haul aren't trying to necessarily reinvent the wheel and come out with like a whole new purpose or use case for NFTs. They're essentially trying to like refine the ones that we have established, have a, an actual use case and purpose, and serve those up in a way that makes them more palatable. And I feel like that is like the harder work and like generally more boring for a lot of people when you get past like the innovation phase and you're in like the double down on what you've innovated and refine, optimize, that kind of thing. So I don't know, man, it does sort of feel like the space has matured a little bit and we're sort of entering like a different era.
Yeah. I guess the opportunity is like, what do we name this era? Right? Because it's definitely a different epoch in crypto, where a lot of people that have been in it looks familiar, sort of feels familiar, but I think it's qualitatively different. And yeah, everything heading forward is going to be totally different. What the fuck is like a cool name for that? Like where we are now.
CoolWIP.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The CoolWIP phase of crypto. It's sort of like that, right?
It sort of
because
is,
everything's always a work in progress, but it boils down to like what's cool though, right?
Yeah, I feel like sort of the dust has settled on what a lot of people think are the coolest ways to use this technology, and people are all sort of doubling down across the board in those directions. It would be cool, man. I feel like it's been a while since, early on, I feel like once a week or twice a month or something, there was something coming out of the woodwork that we've never seen before or never even thought was possible. And I think like all the way back to like Conlon introducing his scribe tool. And, it was just at a period when like, Connie Digital had just like put together one of the first virtual art galleries. And then there was like this first, like something else. And then like all of a sudden we can inscribe on these NFTs. And it's just like, damn, like every fucking week, like some really interesting thing is being put out there that we didn't even really realize that we could do with this tech prior to that. And Async, credit to them. I feel like always did their best to try to like keep that spirit alive and was like always trying to like really do something different. But I feel like it's been a while since I've really been blown away beyond like the iterations and improvements in AI, which is like, completely fascinating in itself. But I feel like, the NFT crypto building scene, I don't know if they necessarily took their foot off the pedal, but it seems like maybe are focusing on doubling down on the directions that they've been in. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough to know because again, like the spaces, it has gotten so much bigger where unless you're really in those trenches every day with those folks, it's hard to see.
And easy to miss.
I do know a lot of folks are, and for better or worse, are working on quite complex projects that definitely have like require more lead time before they're released versus where we were, where it's like everyone's focused on quick iterative, like, can we do this? Can we do that? Experiments that had shorter lead times. So we just saw more. And I mean, my personal opinion, we still need to keep that sort of quick iterative, keep it simple approach, like making sure that something is as left curve as we can make it, while leaving upside and leaving it open for like the right curves to kind of come in. I feel like the big risk is if people spend too much time on the mid curve and try to make something so perfect for everyone that requires so much time and effort, and then it ends up not being fun, and people are like, well, we just fucking wasted years of our lives on this and screwed crypto over by not delivering something that's cool and fun for folks, making them wait the whole time. That's probably more the risk than anything. People kind of taking things too seriously, right? Because yeah, I mean that's the risk in crypto. You can't take the space that seriously. You want to make sure everything's safe, don't get me wrong, right? But it's just the product, and when you're pushing things out, like there's huge upside for folks that lean into what has worked to date in terms of being quick, snappy, putting things out there, getting it into the hands of users, and then iterating from there.
Yeah. Well, I think we, or at least me, like realized last cycle that if you put a lot of time and effort into building a really complicated project that only people who are deep into the space will appreciate, and I'm thinking of on-chain chains as a reference, right? Like that's something that like you really got to be in the weeds to appreciate like what was built there and the time that went into it and the tech backing and like all this shit and everything. And I feel like by fate, we timed that launch properly and ended up selling through all 2,000 chains and everything. And I, a lot of people who are super fans use them, and I see a lot of them in the wild and everything, but there's certainly not 2,000 people who care and understand about the nuances of on-chain chains. And I feel like anything that's not released in a speculative cycle like that has to like essentially be, or even if it is released in a speculative cycle, like if you really want people to use your product in mass, it's got to be stupid simple and easy to interact with, at least on some layer where, some average person walking in can grok what's going on. And honestly, I feel like this time around, man, we've talked about it a number of times. 01 has done like a really cool job of like sort of taking everything off the back end. But if you have like a very basic understanding of NFTs, you understand that you're making one by doing this. And I feel like that's a good timing for that product, because, NFTs is enough in the common vernacular that, people who are interested in it can grok what 01 is doing. And I think Vipe is also doing a pretty good job of like spreading their tentacles and their avatars into non-traditional Web3 places as a way of just sort of exposing other people to them, thinking their avatars are cool. And then there's like, many layers to scratch beneath that once you understand. But I feel like those kind of things are what the space has been missing. And truthfully, a lot of it has just been tech prohibitive up until this point. There really just hasn't been like an easy way to streamline the process for people. But I feel like that's the big like unlock for us, and maybe what gets us to a higher percentage in less than a decade than I was originally saying. Because I feel like you're 100% on point, man. It's just got to be stupid simple and fun and easy to get your hands dirty, right away. And then if it's sticky enough, people will stick around.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's the approach. And the folks, and yeah, shout out 01. The one cool thing, like being in crypto for so long, you get to see these sort of like how the cycles play out for projects that end up sticking around for a while. And of course, 01 had that sort of their initial viral moment towards was that mid to end 2023? Time's so crazy.
Fall.
But now, like, it seems like people have still been using it. I just saw Brookhawk the other day talking about his latest mint there, so he can get more collector passes and stuff like that, which brought me back there. So seeing that there's still life there, it feels like it's about to have its second wind. AVAX seems to be doing things, so I guess there's also scope for like a potential airdrop for folks that have been using that blockchain, which 0-1 users have all been using that blockchain, stand to gain potentially. So like there's real energy there. And again, the folks that have been leaning into and dog fooding their own products, like seeing everyone that has been building it continue to use it as they're building, that's honestly like the golden signal in this space for projects that put something out there that's usable, that they just use all the time. So excited to see more of that pop on the folks' radars and launch this year.
Yeah. 0-1 takes some shit for like, essentially being a free platform and artists. I think some people are selling on secondary, but there's certainly not many. And I do understand that point, man, but I also feel like it's just been such a breath of fresh air for me personally for the space as like a collector. Like that's how I originally got interested in NFTs, right? I was just like, ooh, this artist made something cool. I like want that. And it was, exceptionally affordable, in early days, a couple of cents or, $1 or whatever. And that's just not something that really exists anywhere today. You could argue in the Tezos market, there's that as well. I just haven't messed around with that as much, but I know they've got that sort of vibe. But man, just like the simple joy of like the flywheel of like creating and collecting for no other purpose than just like accumulating stuff for the fun of it. I feel like has been good for me personally. I feel like just to sort of bring me back to the roots of like, what got me interested in this space in the first place. And, despite these artists that I'm collecting not directly making money off of it, I am like only collecting art that I like want and I appreciate, and I remember the people who made this art and I follow them, and I hope that like translates down the line into financial success for a lot of these artists who have been putting out work on 0-1. But man, from just like a pure collector standpoint, it's a fun flywheel, and it just it's I don't know. I love art, man, and for a while there, the space got like really muddled and gas like went astronomical, and then it's like how many side chains are you gonna fuck with to accumulate it and everything, and it turned into like a speculative game and everything, and to sort of come full circle and just get back to collecting art for like less than pennies or whatever. I don't know. It's just fun. And I gotta keep having fun here in order to enjoy it. So I appreciate what they've done there.
Yeah. I think crypto is a collector's paradise. It really is, from across the spectrum, right? From up and coming artists, from the free end of things to like some of the most expensive, rare art in the world, right? And everything in between. A lot of people have like nostalgic vibes or takes, or people like to shit on one chain versus the other. But it's like, if you zoom out, it's just like, this is the best place to be a collector, in particular of art out there, period. Just from the sheer access and like the spectrum of potential art that you can collect and artists that you can collect from. And collecting art in that sense, and being able to kind of, again, just know that you have this art in your collection, and then also just being able to meet these artists and other fellow collectors that share similar taste and sentiment with you, that just by itself is such a rewarding experience. It's probably better than therapy, honestly, just being able to kind of like find yourself and your tastes and lean into that, and like continually find more and just be surprised as well during the whole like collecting experience. It's really special. It's really special. And
Go ahead.
no, just the haters that you're talking about, like for different platforms or chains, and like when it comes to 0-1, I feel like at this point in time, just with the size and scale of the space, there's always going to be haters, right? I think a lot of folks early in this, especially artists that came in like 2019, 2020, where it was small village and everyone was really on board and kind of like shared the same ethos, was supportive of one another's art, offering positive critiques, not just like negative shit take like this fucked up, this sucks, this terrible platform. At this point, there's always going to be naysayers, but for a lot of projects, like those naysayers are equally as important as the proselytizers, the folks that love the product, kind of have this like negative, positive, like there's no bad attention. Like all news is good news kind of effect that helps kind of attract more attention to projects and artists and things like that. So I take those negative critiques and those shit talks as really, really strong signals that there's really a there for projects in particular, as well as artists and blockchains and all that good stuff. So yeah.
No, I agree 100%, man. And I feel like we need the naysayers, and that also helps, push innovation, and all the shit talking also helps push innovation, and I feel like opinion, a lot of these opinions are okay and valid, and I certainly have opinions of my own. But in general, man, I like really don't. And full disclosure, man, I find a lot of these like different side chains and layer twos and everything a total pain in the ass. And I don't, and generally, like personally, not a fan of like VC funded blockchains or anything that's like, front loaded or whatever by, a single entity. However, man, I really don't want this space to become gentrified and everyone funneled into ETH eventually, or anything, right? Like the sort of the whole nature of the space should be that if a bunch of venture capitalists want to spin up a centralized blockchain, well, fuck it, man. That's the nature of the space. You can do that if you want to. I hope the narrative changes around it in general, and people sort of migrate to stuff that I value more than that. However, I feel like the whole point is that people should be able to have creative freedom, and people should be able to run experiments, and people should be able to use this technology to do different things with it. And if we sort of funnel everyone into one direction or funnel everyone onto one platform or one chain, it doesn't really do justice to like the overall mantra of like decentralization, where here's this tech, go for it. And I think, again, man, just sort of like co-signing on your point, like all that shit, I think is a good sign, and I also think it's important to the progression of the industry in general.
Yeah, dude, I think you said it perfect, and I think we embody that and try to embody it at least when it comes to the WIP. And I think a lot of people picking up what we've been laying down there, and a lot more people in the space are living examples of that. And that to me is like the greatest opportunity that crypto presents anyone potentially. Just do you in your own way. And as long as there's a there, good things will happen. So,
but they should do it in our way, but they're free to do it. They're free to do it in their way. And I support that. But like, honestly, let's keep it real. We've been around. They should be doing it in our way.
Yeah. Quick shill for the WIP tomorrow before we wrap up.
Yeah, do it, man. Talk about Gabe, man. I'm not super familiar with what is coming up with his art drop, but you showed me some images and it looks dope.
Yeah, Gabe Weiss, notable artist in the space, is he's making some ass. So he's if you're not familiar with Gabe, he has
perfectly appropriate.
Yeah, I know it's fucking on brand, perfect. But he has a series called the Stoics. Then he developed something, the Anti-Stoics. And then on Nifty, he's calling the collection Anti-Stoic Spectacle. So every Thursday, it's going to be more topical in nature. It's going to put out a one of one minted through Transient Labs, and just going to be a simple, low key 24-hour auction. The dude is prolific with his work. it's similar to like Die with the Most Likes, putting out creating work all the time, and just wanted to do something fun to kind of get to know collectors more. So anyone that collects the one of one also is going to hop on a call with Gabe just to chat afterwards, like making that a focal part of the collecting experience as well, leaning into something that's worked for him. So it's kind of cool that it's timed to always happen on the day of the whip. It's always something that we can chat about. This week, the piece is referencing the fact that cryptoart died again last week, apparently. And then next week, I'm sure there's going to be some commentary about the shit show that is the Bitcoin ETF and the SEC and Gensler and all that good stuff. So it's kind of a cool way to memorialize what the flavor of the week is in an art forward way. So, and Gabe is just like really good people. So excited to have him unpack that project and kind of share his art with other folks. And then I think Sinks is on the whip tomorrow, right?
Yeah, man, we got Sinks back on the whip. I was just talking with him, between last time we had Vipe on and this time we had Vipe on, we not only gave our audience a whole bunch of Vipes, Vipe heroes. Shout out to, what was it? I was going to say a non-pumpkin. Well, it was a non-snail over Halloween and everything. And I know a lot of our audience holds Vipe Heroes anyway. And so I was talking with Sinks. I was like, dude, since we've last had you on, a lot of our audience has accumulated Vipe Heroes. We gave away a bunch, and they've released these apartments that everyone has access to for free. And there's like a whole host of like other new things people can actually do with their Vipe Heroes that, at least for me, man, I know like, once the holidays came up, it was like really difficult to keep up with everything. So I was like, it'd be really cool if we could Vipe back on here to sort of let our audience know like all the cool things they can do with their Vipe as a Vipe holder now, and get a tour of some of these free apartments that people can download if they have one. So so we're going to get a Vipe update, a little apartment tour. There's like some sort of portal and a shower head to like another place. But Sinks is fam, and I know a lot of people are probably interested in what's going on with the stuff that they're holding. And if not, man, even if not, and if they're not familiar with Vipe, this is one of those projects that we were just talking about that's just been sort of nose down, constantly doing the hard work, building out their product, and consequentially is very far out in front in terms of their the avatars they're able to build and put out there and everything. So they've got another new collection of their next like 100 avatars that have come out after their first 100, which my avocado was a part of and everything. So they've never stopped doing stuff constantly. So get a Vipe update after Gabe and a field trip, and give away some Fabiano and Patrizia wearables, and should be a good one.
Oh yeah, dude. Excited for it. And like you're saying, like Vipe and the whole crew that Toxin has assembled has just been doing they've been doing so many things. And I'm excited to kind of get a nice lay of the land of all the updates, and also like figure out how to get into the apartments and all that good stuff. That we're going to find out. So fuck yeah, man. Yeah. All right. Well, let's leave it here, and I'll catch you tomorrow in the metaverse.
Good shit, man.
All right.
Happy New Year,
brother.
See you soon. Later.